Welcome everyone again. My name is Carmen Mazzara. I serve as Executive Director of APSIA, the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. I'm delighted to welcome you to this session on the Pickering, Rangel, and Payne Fellowships as part of the 2020 Diversity Forum. We have three amazing speakers here to share their wisdom with you. We're going to go quickly through the presentation that will unpack each of these fellowships a little bit, and then we'll have time for all of you to pose your questions in that chat box you see on the right-hand side of your screen. So if it's small things like you can't hear or you're having technical issues, feel free to put them in now. If you have questions as we go, put them in and we'll touch base on all of them in a little bit. So with that, I am pleased to turn the floor over to Lily Lopez-McGee to kick things off, and we'll look forward to having all of their wisdom shared with you. The session is being recorded, and so it will also live on the APSIA YouTube page afterwards. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Carmen. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lily Lopez-McGee, and I currently serve as the director of the Thomas R. Pickering Foreign Affairs Fellowship, which is a State Department-funded fellowship program administered at Howard University. And I have the privilege of being online with my three colleagues who also work out of the Howard University Bunch Center. And I might actually, before we get into things, give them a second to introduce themselves briefly as well. So Maria Elena, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody, good afternoon, buenas tardes for those from Puerto Rico, hello. It's a pleasure to be joining my colleagues to talk about these opportunities. My name is Maria Elena Vivas House, and I'm the director of the Donald M. Payne International Development Graduate Fellowship Program.
Hi everyone, I am Bumi Akindasotu. I'm the Deputy Director of the Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Program, where I help with the Graduate Fellowship Program and also work on the Rangel Summer Enrichment Program.
Excellent, thank you, ladies. So I am actually going to just let you all know that the three fellowship programs that we're going to talk to you about are very similar. Some of the things that you will hear may actually sound repetitive, in part because they are, because the programs are very similar. I will actually come back to a couple of points that we'll share with you about who it is that we're looking for. We'll go into that a little bit more deeply at the end of our presentation. I am actually going to hand off the mic to Bumi to start us off with talking about the Rangel program, and let her take us away if I can figure out how to get us through the slides.
All right, thank you, Lily. So yes, as I mentioned, I'm the Deputy Director of the Charles B. Rangel Program, and you'll hear this with my colleagues Lily and Maria Elena, that this program is designed to bring young people into the field of international affairs by way of the Department of State's Foreign Service. So the Charles B. Rangel Program, as well as Pickering and Payne, we look for applicants who come from underrepresented backgrounds and historically minority groups in this country to represent the United States and American interests abroad. These are talented individuals with lots of passion and experience and desire to carry forward the mission of the Department of State. We are managed by Howard University. All three programs are managed by Howard University. We used to sit at Howard University. We're sitting at home now, but we all work closely with each other and support each other in our work. The Rangel program is unique in that we have the Graduate Fellowship Program, which is going to be much of what we talk about this afternoon, and then the Summer Enrichment Program, which is for the undergrads interested in learning about careers in international affairs. So the Graduate Fellowship Program. This is our program where we prepare individuals for careers, as I mentioned, at the Department of State to become Foreign Service officers. The program includes a variety of financial and professional benefits. To name a few, of course, we have an award of $84,000 over 2 years that covers your tuition and fees and living expenses for a master's degree program in the area of interest to the Department of State. That could be business, that could be public administration, that could be obviously international affairs or international relations. For the most part, we fund programs, 2-year master's degree programs that are of interest to the Department of State. We bring the fellows to Washington, D.C. for a 1-week orientation to learn more about the State Department, to learn about the fellowship, of course, and to meet their colleagues that are in the Rangel and Pickering and Payne community. So how do we actually prepare you for service outside of the graduate school experience? We have 2 internships. For the Rangel program, the fellows do their first summer before graduate school on the Hill, learning about the intersection of foreign policy in Congress and at the State Department, but you're placed on the Hill. The second internship takes place the second summer after your graduate school year, and that's an overseas internship at an embassy or consulate abroad, where you actually get a chance to learn about what it's like to be a foreign service officer. You get to network and meet other FSOs and figure out, what you like, what you don't like, and certainly develop a better understanding of the career tracks that you're interested in. If you don't know, the State Department Foreign Service has 5 career tracks. They are economic track, the political track, the public diplomacy track, the management track, and the consular affairs track. I was like, what's the last one? I always forget the consular. And so their overseas internship program, or the overseas internship experience, is a great way for the fellows to get exposed to the various tracks that they're interested in, and as I mentioned, learn more about working at an embassy or consulate abroad. We are a community here across all 3 programs, and we believe in the value of mentorship and sponsorship. And so all of our fellows are assigned an FSO who works with them to talk about work-life balance, to talk about supporting family members, passing the foreign service test and oral assessment, you name it. The mentor is there to help the fellow really navigate not only the 2 years that they're in our program, but after they enter into the foreign service. So once you complete all of the graduate school requirements, certainly the State Department requirements as it relates to security clearance and suitability and med clearance, there is a 5-year service obligation that comes at the end of your fellowship program with us. It's a fast 2 years. There's a lot that goes on, and I'm only touching a little bit here. I'm sure there will be other things that come up as we go through questions. But the Rangel Fellowship, and when we talk about Pickering, is one that you should absolutely apply to. The application is open now. It closes October 14th. And yes, you can apply to all 3 programs if you would like. So the timeline for our program is, as I mentioned, the deadline is the 14th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is not an application that you wait to start a week or 2 before the deadline. Even if you're not sure about applying, you should start an application now for whichever program that you're interested in. There are various elements like a personal statement, letters of recommendation, getting all your finances together. This is a financial needs program. All of our programs are financial needs programs, so you're going to have to do quite a bit of work to demonstrate financial need. So after the deadline, we have the selections of the fellows. On the 17th of November, the selection panel will get together and pick 90 finalists. And then we will have interviews that will take place virtually. Normally it's in Washington, D.C., but we will be doing them virtual for obvious reasons. And the interview really is an opportunity for you to demonstrate your experience, your knowledge, and commitment to the Foreign Service. And then you will also do a writing assessment. Also at the interview experience, We're fully transparent about what people are walking into. So we have panel discussions with Rangel Fellows to talk about their experiences being in the Foreign Service, because we want everybody to know and feel like this is a good decision for themselves. So then on the 4th of December, we let the 90 finalists know the status of their application. And this year we are selecting 45. So half of the group will be invited as fellows, and usually there's a quick turnaround in terms of whether or not you accept the award that's presented to you. Now, the question that always comes up with this is, what happens if I get accepted to Rangel and Pickering? The short answer is that you have to pick one. So Rangel's deadline in selection is first. So if you're offered the Rangel Fellowship you accept, then obviously you would not accept you could not continue on with the Pickering program. The financial benefits of both programs are exactly the same. There's a small difference in the overseas internship. In the domestic internship. So you would have to pick. If you decide that you're made an offer and you don't want to accept the Rangel and you want to give it a shot with the Pickering, and let's say you don't get the Pickering, you cannot come back to the Rangel and say, will you please have me? We will not, unfortunately. We do have to move on to the other candidates. So it's really a great opportunity to apply to both, and certainly if you get one, you should accept it. So in terms of the eligibility for all three of our programs, you must be a U.S. citizen, you must have a cumulative GPA from your undergrad degree program of a 3.2, and you must be ready to enter graduate school in the fall of 2021. And I will say we do not fund JD programs, we do not fund PhD programs, we do not fund joint programs where you get like a public administration and JD program. So we do fund dual degrees, right? Like if you're doing business and IR, certainly, or business and journalism, that's fine. But we do not do programs that do not fall within the sort of interest of the State Department, and the JD program is one of those, and certainly a PhD is one of those as well. Let's see. So should I hold on the questions, or maybe we hold them until the end? I see some questions in the chat. Actually, I'll try. Yeah, go ahead, Lily.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think some of the initial couple of questions about grad school I can take as we're going into the next couple of slides about Pickering, if that works.
Okay. I can take this third one from Patricia Bravo Morales, who asks, can you specify what the difference is in the domestic internship between Rangel and Pickering? So yes, the Rangel domestic internship is on the Hill. That takes place the summer before you go into graduate school. The Pickering internship, which Lily will talk about, is at the State Department. That takes place the second summer, or the summer after your first year of graduate school. So I'll leave that there, and then I'll pass it to Lily to talk about the Pickering program.
Awesome. Thank you, Bumi. So let's talk a little bit about the Pickering. I will probably not go into a lot of detail about this slide because much of it is the same as what you saw from Bumi's presentation. So the Pickering and the Rangel programs are very much, I would consider them cousins of the State Department's Diversity and Excellence programs. Our funding is the same. The way that the funding shakes out in terms of the per year allocation that we, how the funding is dispersed is that you get $42,000 per year towards a 2-year master's degree, and that 2 years is really important. It does have to be a 2-year master's degree program. If you are enrolled as a first-year graduate student now, you would need to be starting a new graduate program by next fall, 2021, that meets those that 2-year requirement. So hypothetically, you could be enrolled in a program now, but you would have to start a new one next fall. So we provide $18,000 that goes directly to the student in the form of a personal stipend, and then we provide $24,000 if I can do my math, that goes in the form of tuition assistance towards tuition and mandatory fees to the graduate programs directly. Just to give you an idea of some of the programs that we would be able to fund, Bhumi mentioned a few of them. I'll also note that our list has expanded just a little bit in terms of the other types of programs that we're able to provide funding for. We are able to provide funding for organizational leadership, or immigration policy or immigration law. I will say that anything that has the form of law in it has to be a master's program. It cannot be a GAD program, it has to be a master's program. And for all of the programs, whichever one it is that you're interested in going into, it must have a significant international focus to it. So the majority of your curriculum should have some sort of international component to it. So if you're doing an MBA, for example, you should also be taking courses that would have an international focus on the curriculum there. As Bhumi noted, the core difference between Pickering and Rangel is where and when that domestic internship takes place. Pickering fellows don't do their first internship until after they've started graduate school, in between their first and second year of grad school. And then they do their overseas internship after they complete their master's degree program. So Pickering fellows enter a 100, which is that training class that all Foreign Service officers go through, usually in the fall of the year that they graduate. So for this group, it'll be fall 2023. Rangel fellows tend to enter a 100 during the summer, during that July 2023 for this group. We also have the same wraparound services. We provide Foreign Service mentors, sponsors, and then there is also the 5-year service obligation, assuming that you meet all of the entry requirements into the State Department's Foreign Service, including medical suitability and top security clearance, which we're happy to take questions about, because that can always be kind of a source of what does that exactly look like. Our selection timeline is also essentially 1 week past what Rangel is. So each year, Rangel and Pickering switch places in who goes first. This year, Rangel's deadline is first on the 14th. The Pickering one is 1 week later on October 21st. We will notify 90 finalists that they've been selected for virtual interviews on November 24th. We will do those virtual interviews and writing assignment proctoring during the December 15th through 17th, and we will select and notify those fellows that are awarded the program on December 18th. Our eligibility requirements are the same. What I might focus on here are some of the differences. If any of you have looked at the programs in the past, the applications have been pretty standard for the last few years. We've had a 600-word personal statement. We've had a 400-word financial need statement, and then a whole host of other questions regarding financial need, including the student aid report from FAFSA, as well as 2 letters of recommendation, and highlights from community service, employment, your education history, and that kind of thing. This year, we've added one additional essay on organizing. The Foreign Service has developed their 13 dimensions, which are essentially the 13 core characteristics that make for a good Foreign Service officer, and planning an organization is one of them. So we have added a 350-word statement where applicants are able to tell us about an experience that they've had related to planning and organizing that's relevant. So that is a little bit about the selection process. I will add just 2 quick notes. Again, most of the questions that we get are about the graduate school programs. The programs do have to be US based. They also have to be under normal circumstances. We're not talking about pandemics right now. Under normal circumstances, full-time in-person programs. So if the program is traditionally online, we are not able to fund it. If it is traditionally an in-person program that has happened to go online for the purposes of the pandemic, that's those types of programs would be okay. There are also a handful of programs that do have overseas components to them. The core component that we look at to see if we can fund that type of program is if the degree is coming from the US-based institution. Remember, the funding is coming from the Department of State, so the funding should also be going to US-based institutions. I may leave it there. We'll come back to some of the questions. I know that the questions list is running along. We will come back to those. In the meantime, I will pass it off to Maria Elena to take us away for the Payne program.
Thank you so much, Lily. So the Payne Fellowship Program is the most different from the other two programs in that it is a collaboration between Howard University and the U.S. Agency for International Development. So AID is a premier federal agency for foreign assistance and the world leader in humanitarian aid. So if you are interested in development and humanitarian assistance, this is the program for you. It is an independent federal agency, but it's under the purview of the U.S. Secretary of State. It operates in over 100 countries and with more than 75 offices or missions across the world, but mostly in developing countries. So the program elements are very similar. We award up to $96,000 for supporting tuition, fees, living expenses, and summer internships. We are very similar to the Rangel in that we have our first summer internship on the Hill so that our fellows understand the nexus between foreign policy formulation and international development. And we have the mentoring component. We pair them up with a foreign service officer. And the second year, they go to an overseas mission, an overseas internship at a mission. And unfortunately, this year, it was a virtual internship, but we made it happen, and they were able to intern with missions. So everything was kept the same, except for the fact that they were working from home. Let's see. I would say that the most significant difference is that we're looking for different majors and just a wider scope of majors. The USAID Foreign Service has 12 backstops or technical focus areas, and that is something that will open the opportunity to different majors, including people who are interested in STEM, biology, agriculture, the foreign service officers that would be working in different areas of the foreign service for USAID fall into these categories, and they could be population health nutrition officer, an economist officer, agriculture, education. So if you have a background in education, you can apply to this fellowship. Environmental sciences, private enterprise, you can be economics or finance, engineering, crisis stabilization and governance officer, contracting officer, program officer, and financial management officer. So the areas of concentration are wider, and you would be looking for majors and master's programs that follow under these. You can get an MPP, an MPA, a master's in public health, a master's in global development. So the field is wider, and we look forward to getting people from different backgrounds, and some are with some years of experience, 2 to 3 years of experience. Some are return Peace Corps volunteers. We usually have about 30% that come directly from undergraduate, but the agency is always looking for people that have achieved something. If you're applying as directly from undergraduate, you have done something that is impactful and is, something that goes beyond your usual academic endeavors. Let's see. So characteristics of a successful application. We look for individuals who show a clear interest in a career in international affairs, a commitment to service that will be, volunteering or leading organizations or doing something, as I mentioned before, exceptional, exhibiting leadership qualities. And this is very important, and this is something that we look at during your essay, personal statement, and also your financial need statement. Strong writing skills. You have to have very strong writing skills and make a good case of why you want to join the Foreign Service. And make it compelling, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable and to just talk about your own experience, what makes you different from the rest, because that's what we're looking for people who have come from different backgrounds and overcome obstacles and challenges, because one of the characteristics that is always important in the Foreign Service is resilience and flexibility. And of course, the relevant technical experience in the field. We talked briefly about the tips for preparing a competitive fellowship application. Do you
Yeah,
want
I was going to say, we have a few questions if we want to start with the questions, and then we can come back to our tips and suggestions. If I can address just a couple of questions that we've had about the timing for when applicants should apply. So all three of our programs generally happen a year in advance of when you would be applying, when you would be planning to enroll in graduate school. So for this year's application cycle, the Rangel and the Pickering programs will have October deadlines. You should also be planning to apply to graduate schools for admission for fall 2021. For next year's application cycle, it will be the same kind of reflection of a year in advance. So you should be planning to apply at least a year, the year before you're planning to enroll in your graduate program. If you're planning to enroll in fall 2021, you would apply this year. So you would need to meet the eligibility requirements by the date that the applications are due. The other thing that I will note here is that our programs, you should be starting a new 2-year master's program at the time that you're planning to start in fall 2021. If you're already in a program that's that you've already completed some of the coursework towards, that would not be considered a new one. So it would need to be a completely new program, even if it was a joint. And the only case where we could do joint or sort of dual programs is when they're both 1-year programs. It has to fit within that 2-year requirement. And you'll notice that we do have all three of the programs have a list of partner institutions that we work with who have committed to providing additional funding to fellows who are admitted to their graduate programs. And for a few of those, there are joint programs, but they're joint 1-year programs. So the Harris School at the University of Chicago, for example, has a 1-year master's in international affairs and a 1-year public policy degree that together combined make the 2-year master's program requirement for the Rangel and the Pickering and the Payne programs. So you should be applying a year in advance, looking at our partner institutions. And I would also just emphasize that you would be needing to apply to graduate schools simultaneous to the fellowship programs. The fellowship programs are a separate application process from that of the graduate programs. Because our deadlines are a little bit later this year, our selection timeline is also a little bit later. So you should monitor the programs that might have December deadlines to apply to. There are a few that do have December 1 deadlines. So you should consider the application deadlines as you're also applying. I'll take the contractual question, then maybe Bhumi and Maria Elena, you all can popcorn some of the other questions. We had a question about when the contractual obligation starts. Our fellows sign contracts when they decide to enroll in the program. So these are hiring pipelines. You are committing to, when you commit to starting the fellowship program, you're also committing to completing the 5-year service obligation at the end. So in the case that you, let's say, make it through a year and you decide that the foreign service isn't something that is of interest to you anymore, there would be a repay back obligation for the academic support that you may have accepted at that point. So we really encourage you to think critically about whether or not this is a career that is really of interest to you, because you're when you accept the fellowship, it's also including the obligation.
So to answer Zachariah's question, our application is not open yet, so that's why I sort of avoided talking about the deadline. But it will probably be around the beginning of November. As soon as we have our application, we will notify APSIA and send you all the information. We're just waiting for last minute details. But we hope to have the application soon, maybe next week.
There's a question from Clara that says, what if you get the fellowship but you don't get into grad school next year? Can you defer? So this is a common concern. I will say that we work very closely with the graduate school programs to help the fellows gain admissions. That said, we encourage all of the applicants to do their research on all of the requirements for graduate school. APSIA has great resources on their website, and they do lots of information sessions. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to do the legwork, to connect with the admissions staff, the professors, and other people at the universities of your interest. Our programs don't equate to automatic admission into graduate school. And our programs don't reduce or in any way waive the requirement of the graduate school program. So if you decide you want to go to Stanford and Stanford says, you need to have, a particular type of econ class or whatever it is, you being a Rangel, Pickering, or Payne fellow doesn't waive that requirement. You still have to meet it. So, we do our best to make sure that every fellow is realistic and prepared for the graduate school process. And frankly, the schools love our fellows because we invest in them. We do a lot of work to prepare them for the Foreign Service. And when they're done with their graduate school, they have work, they have a job, which is good for their program. So I wouldn't be too worried about the prospects of graduate school admissions if you're planning on doing the work that you would normally do anyways to get into graduate school if you weren't applying to our program.
I would just like to add that every program has partnerships with different schools, and some of them meet and complement the tuition assistance. So at the end, you have no outstanding debt, which is a great thing. You can also combine other scholarships. Some of our fellows have combined the Coverdale from the Peace Corps and other fellowships or scholarship programs so that they can attend graduate school without incurring any debt.
Actually, ladies, on that note, we have one question from a veteran who's going to receive GI benefits. And his question is whether that would undercut the definition of financial need. Could one of the three of you sort of unpack what you generally mean by financial need, and then perhaps speak specifically to something like how the GI Bill might impact that?
Yeah, so I can take that question, and then you all can add to it if I miss anything. So we consider financial need very robust, and I would categorize it in kind of three different stages of financial need. We ask for your materials from your financial aid statement from your senior year of undergrad. We also ask for information about your current student aid report from APSIA, and we also ask you for information about the graduate programs that you're planning to attend. So our selection committee is looking at financial need from a holistic point of view, looking at folks who have come from backgrounds where financial need for their family is not going to be able to support them at all, or has never supported them in their education and endeavors because of financial needs, right? We're also looking at folks who may be out of school and have worked for a little while, who maybe Peace Corps volunteers. Peace Corps volunteers don't get paid a whole lot, so that financial need for graduate school is certainly there. And then we have graduate programs, right? So if you're looking to go, I'd always pick on Columbia. I'm sorry, Columbia, but they have a price tag of about $80,000, maybe $90,000. I think closer to what their estimated cost of attendance is per year. if you are looking at programs like that, everybody's going to have some level of financial need there, right? And that's really what that 400-word statement is asking you to do. So we ask for a series of data points from what your income is, what your parents' incomes are, what, again, your financial from undergrad, and then we ask them to contextualize it for us. Give us in 400 words what it is that your need is for graduate school, and why are you seeking support from this particular program. I would say, to the point about vet status in particular, that demonstrates in itself a commitment to public service. That is something I think is very much in line with all three of our programs. And I would certainly encourage candidates with experience in military or Department of Defense to emphasize those types of experiences and tie that into the story about why they'd like to be in a career of diplomacy. So again, we're looking at financial needs from a very kind of robust standpoint. FAFSA is one component of a larger financial needs story that you can tell. And I would really encourage you to use that 400 words to tell us why it is that these particular programs would be useful and helpful for you in making graduate school accessible.
Yes, absolutely. We at the Payne Fellowship welcome the applications of veterans because, as Lily said, they have demonstrated the commitment to public service. And excuse me, some of them are, very committed also to international affairs. Excuse me. And we value also just the diversity of opinions and backgrounds, and definitely we encourage the application of veterans.
Thank you all. We had a similar question about PPIA, but I think it would be a similar answer, and all of you are generally nodding. So the next question I'd like to pose to you all, and Bhumi, if you don't mind starting, is the question we often get about whether students are most successful coming straight out of undergrad, or if they've had a few years of work experience, and particularly if they've had any experience, internship, or work with the State Department itself. Could you speak generally to the sense of experience?
Yeah, so I just want to do a quick audio check. Is there like a garbly, echoey thing when I speak at all? No? Okay.
Not you.
Okay, all right. I think it might be when we have multiple people off mute, there might be like that weird feedback. Anyways, okay, so the question about work experience in undergrad. So first, there is no requirement for our programs in terms of years of experience or preferential treatment in terms of if you're coming straight out of undergrad versus you've been out of school for 15, 20 years. So long as there is an age requirement, and I always mix this up, Lily, it's 57, 59.
It's 59, but
Okay.
You have to, if you're planning to do the fellowships, you have to be 56 at the time that you're applying to the fellowships.
Okay, yes. I can't assume anything, but if you're 56 or less, you can apply to the programs and be considered eligible. So in terms of experience, yes, our fellows across all the programs have work experience in the corporate sector, nonprofit, Peace Corps, Fulbright, State Department. Many of them we've had applicants who are actually State Department employees, maybe on the civil service side. We've got people who are interested, who've done think tank work. So it really, this experience runs the gamut. In your personal statement, though, what's important is that you weave together your story in a way that makes it compelling for the panel. So if you're just coming straight out of undergrad, and you maybe don't have a lot of work experience, maybe you've just done internships, well, why are you a competitive candidate? What about your story would be interesting to the selection panel? What skills could you lend to the Foreign Service? And what do you hope to change, right? The field of diplomacy is very much about making a difference abroad. And so, what are the issues that are important to you that you want to address should you enter into the Foreign Service? So that's, I'll just say that briefly and see if Lily or Maria want to add anything about work experience. But certainly I don't want someone who's maybe a few years out of school to be discouraged with applying to our program. And certainly if you're still in undergrad and want to, apply, please don't be discouraged.
I think
Thanks to you both. Oh, go ahead, Lily.
No, I was just going to add one quick note. One of the things that's important if you are coming straight from undergrad is to do a little bit of work. If you haven't had a whole lot of work experience, do a little bit of work of talking to people who are in these careers. Because one of the things, it's not necessarily that folks who have been out know better than others that this is what they want to do, but they've had some work experience and they can reflect on what things they've enjoyed and what they haven't. So if you are coming straight from undergrad, I would encourage you to, if you have time, to do one of the virtual internships, talk to some foreign service officers to get a sense of if this is really something that you're interested in doing, because you do have that 5-year service commitment on the end. And if this is going to be your first career, you want to have some certainty that this is at least something that you've done a little bit of research on. So that's the only point that I would add to that.
Just to answer Rania's question, the reason we left that interviews would be in Washington is because we don't know, but most likely they will be online. And there is a component to the Payne selection process that is different from the Pickering and Rangel, in that there is a group exercise. And since the USAID Foreign Service Center has been doing a lot of selection also during this time online, they are very adept at working out the different mechanics about having a group exercise online. So we will have a group exercise as well as a writing exercise. And there was a question from Dixie about, could you talk about the writing exercise? How should students prepare? I would say exercise having just 1 hour to write an essay that demonstrates a thesis and then justifies your point of view and then has a conclusion, and do it under an hour, because that's what it is, the writing exercise, about having very limited time in order to respond to a question, usually foreign policy related, and you will have a choice, but you will have to do it in the best way possible during limited time. How will it be different now that interviews are all online? Yes, it is a challenge, but I think that it's doable. We have done all our programming during this summer online, and all the conferences, and I think that the more that you can convey online, work on your soft skills and try to shine, because really it will set you apart, especially if you're doing group exercises or having interviews that are going to be conducted all online.
It's a great way to show that resiliency and flexibility, right?
Yes.
Bumi or Lily, would either of you like to talk about if there's a distinction in the Pickering or Rangel writing exercise, and whether there's a different way students should prepare, or do you think Maria Elena's advice to just practice is the best way forward?
Yeah, I'd agree. Practice is the best way forward. We obviously, we don't do a group component with the Rangel and Pickering, but yes, it's the same time. You get an hour to do your writing exercise. It's not so much, and this is the case for really the essays and the application. It's not so much whether or not your response is right or wrong, but how you develop your argument. So whatever argument you make, just make sure, as Maria Elena mentioned, that you've got your thesis and then you've got your supporting paragraph and your conclusion, right? Your typical 5-paragraph standard there. So practice, practice, practice.
That actually is a question I often get from students. Oh, sorry, Lily, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
I guess one of the questions I often get from students is where others may go astray in their application. Are there common hiccups that students encounter, or think landmines they should avoid if they're trying to craft a competitive application that each of you have seen that we can at least recommend to our colleagues here they not do? We've got a whole slide. And yes, the slides will be available later. I saw that question in the chat box.
If I could encourage you all to really consider the last piece about proofreading. So what often happens, particularly with these types of multi-component applications, and I'm talking from the context of our fellowships, but certainly multiple fellowships have lots of fellowships have lots of different essays that they ask of you. Make sure that you're proofreading and looking at how the whole thing comes together. If our selection panel is looking at a really polished personal statement, but the financial needs statement and the new 350-word essay statement are riddled with errors, grammatical and that kind of thing, didn't spend a whole lot of time reviewing it. Maybe they didn't get feedback on that particular essay from Dixie and other fellowship advisors who do this work. That will come through, and that might give the selection committee pause in terms of thinking about your writing abilities, because the personal statement may not be a reflection of the writing abilities of the applicant at that point. So make sure that you're looking at the whole application, not just the essays, but also the highlights. The way that our application is designed is it's actually a series of text box. I know we get complaints from applicants all the time, but neither here nor there. Make sure that those pieces you kind of do in a Word document first, have somebody review it, make sure that it's telling, it's looking good, and then paste it in. And then kind of in that theme, but a little bit separate, is make sure that the whole application tells a story. Oftentimes we'll get really excellent qualified applicants who have done their part in their application to bring it all together. And then the letters of recommendation fall really flat because either the recommender isn't really sure what this program is and they weren't sure how to approach it and what pieces to highlight, or it's very kind of lukewarm. They did great in my class, and that's kind of the substance of it, right? So if we're looking at two excellently qualified applicants in their application materials, and the letters of recommendation are really where the difference is. One has two excellent letters of recommendation and the other one has kind of a lukewarm one, and then one that's kind of okay. They will prefer the person with the two letters of recommendation. So to the extent that you can, make sure that you're monitoring what information your recommenders have. Send them the link to the program. Send them your personal statement. Give them some bullet points that help remind them how it is that they know you, so that they can craft examples that would then speak to the panels who are reading these applications. Because remember, they're reading somewhere between 100 and 170 different. Carmen served on our panel; she has read them. By number 50, a lot of it is starting to sound the same. So make sure that there's something about it that tells a cohesive narrative that draws in the selection panel member to say, oh yeah, this person really has thought through the fact that this is a career hiring pipeline. They're really interested in that, and the recommenders confirm that, right? So that would be one area where I think people tend to forget the way that the whole application is coming together. And then the last part that I'll note is that if we don't see the Department of State anywhere referenced in your personal statement, or USAID, or development, or diplomacy, or some notion of that, that may give our selection panel a pause in your understanding of the program. Because remember, we are essentially hiring you to be a foreign service officer at the time that you're being awarded the program. So we want you to know something about the type of work that you're getting into. You don't have to know your career track at this point, but you do need to have some sort of understanding of what it is that you're signing up for.
I would echo everything Lily said, and I would say at this phase, one of the things you can do, particularly if you're new to our programs, is to look at our frequently asked questions and application tips page. So the tips that Lily has here are on our website, and we spell out, because we get so many questions in our inbox, we actually take the time to develop thoughtful responses in our FAQs So if you haven't already, please go to the FAQ page for all three programs and familiarize yourself with which area that you have a question about. Also go to the application tips. You get lots of questions about what makes a competitive application and what should I say in the financial all of that is included in the tips page. So, and then of course, just make sure you qualify for the program. It matters because you could be doing a lot of work or saving a lot of work if maybe you just need like another semester to get your data. So please be mindful of the requirements. We don't have flexibility. I can't remember, somebody had asked about the GPA requirement. We don't have flexibility with the GPA under the circumstances. Can we change to 3.2? And so if you need more time to do that, do so, and then you're welcome to apply to that. Just make sure that you meet this requirement.
I would also add, because USAID is completely different from the State Department. I mean, it falls under the State Department, but please don't copy paste and say, I want to work for the State Department. Just say, I want to work for USAID. Attention to detail, and do not speak in generalities like, oh, I believe, in peace and understanding among nations. I want to work for, improving human condition. No, just you have to be very specific and have a clear goal. Why do you want to go into the foreign service? Because it is a big commitment. It's 5 years of your life after you finish your grad school. You have to show motivation for public service and being a representative of this country overseas. And why is that important to you on a personal level? Just to answer Andres' question about how many applications for the Payne Fellowship last year, we had 520 something applications, and we selected 10 fellows.
Yeah, for Rangel, we had 800 eligible applications or so, around 800 eligible applications. That was like almost double from the previous year. And we selected last year 30.
Lily, do you want to share Pickering numbers?
They were about the same as Rangel, so it was 880 some odd applications that we had opened, and we sent about 500 to the panel to review. So the difference between those two numbers is essentially the ones that were either incomplete or the ones that did not qualify to go through to panel for selection.
Yeah.
As Lily mentioned, sorry, Bumi.
Go ahead.
As Lily mentioned, I've had the great privilege of being a panelist for a couple of years, and two pieces of advice from somebody who slogs through those hundreds of apps. One, a quality letter of recommendation does not mean the best title. The quality letter of recommendation comes from someone who can do what Lily said, which is talk about you. So if you have a letter of recommendation from the Pope, and all they can say is, Lily is nice, I don't care. That is not helpful to me at all. I would much rather a faculty member who can talk about you and talk about your work and connect it to the program than the best, grandest title in the world. And that's the other point that I have to share, which is if you don't tell us, we don't know. We read everything you send, but if it doesn't say anywhere, as Lily said, that you want to work for the State Department or you want to work for AID, we will not know that. If you have a tremendous life story that has demonstrated resilience and a commitment to global affairs and special underwater basket weaving skills, whatever it is, if you don't tell us, we don't know. So please, if you have this great story, feel free to say, as a da-da-da-da-da who did that, I want to, tell me, because there's no other way I will know as a committee member. Anything about there's lots of information that you may share that doesn't come to the committee. So all we see are your essays and your letters and those key components. And they're not trying to trick you. If they ask for it in the question, answer it. If they ask you for the document, provide it. It's not a secret process. It really is just reacting to what they share. We're almost out of time, so I do want to ask, we have one question related to relations with tribal nations within the United States, and whether something like the Bureau of Indian Affairs or other elements of international intercultural diplomacy may fall under the spectrum of Pickering, Rangel, and Payne. But
sorry, I muted and then unmuted myself. So the State Department, the U.S. Department of State, does not currently do anything related to anything within the United States. So to the extent that your work experience has involved work with tribal sovereign nations, that could certainly be something that you could bring into your personal statement, and you're interested in taking that out to other parts of the world in that type of work. Remember, these programs are hiring pipelines for the U.S. Department of State and AID, though. So if you're interested ultimately in working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, that would be something considered separate. And the selection committee would look at that as sort of using this as a launch point into something else, which, you know, with any employer organization, they want to know why you want to work for them. So I would just encourage you to, again, to the extent that that informs why it is that you're applying to these programs, I would certainly encourage you to develop that narrative in there. And remember that these are programs that ultimately you'll be working for the Department of State and USAID.
Yes, we do not have development programs with Indian nations. However, we are so interested in attracting people from tribal nations to represent our country overseas and to show the diversity of our nation. So anybody that is interested in working in development with USAID is definitely welcome, with that unique perspective, which I think will separate you and distinguish you from a lot of the applicants if you have that. There was a question about deferment, and our program does not have deferment, but I don't know if Pickering and Rangel does.
Yeah, we do. So the Rangel and Pickering, we only allow deferments for the Fulbright. And you, if you're offered an award from both programs, would have to provide the award letter from Fulbright showing the time of your placement. And then it would need to go through State Department review and approval. But that is the only circumstance to which deferrals are allowed. And if I can tag just one question about, I saw they're similar about PPIA and State Department internships, just to make sure we're clear. So yes, if you've done a State Department internship, that does not make you more competitive. Because as Lily said, we look at your application as a whole. So if you did a State Department internship, but your letters of recommendation weren't strong, or your personal statement wasn't strong, or whatever, your internship really doesn't help. But you know, it certainly, if you holistically your package is sound and it weaves together your story nicely, you've demonstrated interest in the Foreign Service, then having the State Department internship or PPIA or any sort of similar international affairs related background or work experience will help you. But there is no preferential scoring for people who've had experience working with the State Department.
And with that, everyone, we are at time. Thank you all so much for being here, and thanks in particular to our amazing speakers for sharing their wisdom. These programs are tremendous, and the students who come through them are so wonderful and contribute in so many ways. And I'm so proud to know many of them and to have so many of them come to APSIA schools. We look forward to seeing all of you at future APSIA events, including chances to get to know those grad programs and figure out which one does make the most sense for you. You can see all of the contact information here on your screen. Please do reach out. That's what these ladies do so well, is advise students how best to talk about their story and to connect with these programs. The recording will be available shortly, as will the slides. And I hope all of you have a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world and whatever is left of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so wonderful to have you all here. Take care.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.